Today, rewire your brain. How men can go from impulsive behaviors to spiritual resilience. Welcome to Sacred Grit, a podcast equipping men to conquer addiction and overcome inner struggles through physical, mental, and spiritual disciplines so you can become a man of honor and integrity. I'm Jason Lyle. Now let's get to work. Today you will learn your fight or flight brain will sabotage you until you train it. Small daily reps, not quick fixes, rewire your brain. And spiritual grit is built by choosing discipline over impulse. This episode is brought to you by Air Georgia, Adventures in Recovery. Hey man, glad you came back. Hope you're getting something out of these here on Sacred Sunday. I want to share something with you. So at my lowest of lows, the place where I was planning how to end my life, I found the one piece of help that changed everything. And that's what I want to share this Sacred Sunday here on Sacred Grit. The day I found the mustard seed that would grow into a mighty tree. So at the time, I was working in wilderness therapy as a field guide, and one day I met a man named Rob Gent, the chief clinical officer of the organization I worked for. Now, there's actually an episode way down below a few years back where Rob and I talk about the science if you want to check it out, but I'm just going to tell you about the moment that changed my life. So Rob was teaching us guys about working with kids that had been adopted, because the majority of the ones that were in that program were adopted, as I am. And so he introduced a concept I'd never heard before, this concept of flipping your lid. He explained that when the kids were triggered, their amygdala, which is the fight or flight part of the brain, took over and they lost access to the prefrontal cortex. That would be the rational part of the brain. So in other words, they literally could not reason. They couldn't find rational. So trying to rationalize with them was futile. We needed other tools. So the idea being that, as soon as they were, quote unquote triggered, they lost access to the prefrontal cortex and, they were just living from a fight or flight response. So then Rob looks around the room and he goes, so is anybody here adopted? And of course I raised my hand and he said, okay, so I want to illustrate this. And he looked at me and he said, when I say, Jason, your family loves you and wants what's best for you, what's the first thing that comes to mind? And I just blurted out, bullshit. And Rob gets all excited. He's like, exactly. He said, see, even though you know your family loves you, you still react with bullshit. Because in that space, the space of your adoption, you're living from the amygdala. He said that trauma is pre-verbal, wired into you from birth. Because you just can't recall it doesn't mean you don't remember it. And man, a light went on inside my head because that spoke to me. So, I thought, could that be the reason I'd made such a mess of my life? Was it because I was operating out of a fight or flight response? Could it be that hardwired into me was the belief that I was alone and unloved in the world? And maybe that's why my behaviors made no sense at all. The affairs, the destruction, the chaos. Why would any reasonable man live that way? Maybe I didn't have access to reason, right? Fast forward a few weeks and I'm laying in my bed planning the end of my life, and the only thing I was clinging to was Rob's words. So I shot him an email and he quickly replied, which surprised me, and we set up a Zoom call. Now on that call, he kind of broke it down for me. He said I had to practice closing the gap between the amygdala, fight or flight, and the prefrontal cortex, reason. I had to get rational thought into my actions. He gave me books to read, like The Body Keeps the Score and Dopamine Nation, and then he gave me practice, cold water immersion and breath work. So he was explaining to me that the impulses I would feel in my body were impulses that were put there when I was way beyond the ability to reason. And so the first part of my brain that developed, this amygdala part, was where I was living from. And so I had to learn how to connect rational thought to it. So that evening I filled up my bathtub with water and I dumped every bit of ice in that I could find, and I got in. And when I got in, man, every alarm in my body screamed at me to get out, but I stayed. This was literally life or death for me. And I felt fight or flight on full blast. When I got in there, it was like every alarm in my whole body went off. But it was really interesting because at one point it just happened, like a calm came over me. I closed that gap and I felt amazing. So I was able to take this fight or flight response, and after about 30 or 40 seconds of being in there, it just started to close down, and I felt it in my body, and I knew what Rob meant. So I got out of the ice and jumped in the shower, went to bed. And the next morning I knew something had shifted. Now listen, it could have been because I wanted it to shift. It really doesn't matter. If placebo works, it works. So, I mean, whatever somebody wants to scrutinize this, but, so I get up the next morning, get out on my front porch, and I did a little meditation, a little bit of yoga that I knew how to do, and 3 rounds of Wim Hof breathing. And then I went inside and took a cold shower. And here's the only way I can describe what happened to me. Every bit of information, all the theology, all the step work in recovery, all the therapy sessions downloaded into my body. It was the strangest thing, man. Ideas that had only been intellectual now had space inside of me, and they just didn't make sense. They took root. So I had this space where it just took root in my body. I knew I'd found the answer, and I was determined to keep going. Now, to this day, 4 years later, I start every single morning with cold water, yoga, breath work, and meditation. I do it every single day. I mean, when I'm out of town, sometimes it's a different version of it, but I'm going to do some part of it. But pretty much every day that I'm in town, and usually out of town. I was in Peru last year for 2 weeks, and every single morning I did a practice because it has changed my life. I found a level of peace I never thought was possible. And here's the thing, man, it can change your life too. It's not just me. I've seen marriages saved, addictions broken, and lives rebuilt through these practices. But listen, man, it's not easy. It's not a magic fix. It's a daily practice. It's a sacred grit. You keep coming back, downloading rational thought into your fight or flight response, and little by little, you gain control. Now, is this speaking to you? And that's a question you have to ask yourself, because are you tired of your desires not matching your actions, right? This thing that you want to do, you just can't quite do it. And do you still feel like the monster lives inside of you, and no matter how hard you try, you just cannot get that monster to shut up? Brother, I can teach you how to tame the monster, and your life will never be the same again. In the Bible, Jesus talks about a mustard seed. It's the smallest of seeds that grows into the strongest of trees. But here's the thing. In our culture, we want big changes for a little work. We chase ayahuasca trips or edgy therapists or new programs, or we want to go on mushrooms. We want the shortcut. But just like everything else in life, transformation comes through reps, my dude. It's about the small things done daily that produces the change you're desperate for. I had a friend tell me recently, even if you tiptoe, keep walking. One tiny step at a time. That's it, man. Like tiptoe forward every day. These practices are a mustard seed that can grow into a mighty tree in your life. So let me ask you, are you ready? That's a big question, because that's where you have to get to. Are you ready to make good decisions and act on them? Are you ready to stop being a man you can't look at in the mirror and start being proud of the man you are because you've taken your life back from porn, drugs, or the next fling? If so, my man, you are in the right place, because that is what sacred grit is all about. It's about being gritty enough to do the daily work and to connect the man you want to be to the man that you are. So come back this Wednesday, because this Gritty Wednesday, I'm going to show you exactly how to start these practices that can change your life. Because here's the truth. None of us can do this alone. You're not the only man fighting the monster, man. I have been there. Other men have been there. And together, we can all walk the road, tiptoeing forward one gritty step at a time. But you have to make that decision. So I hope you'll join me on Wednesday. So today you learned that your fight or flight brain will sabotage you until you train it. Small daily reps, not quick fixes, rewire your life. And spiritual grit is built by choosing discipline over impulse. All right, man. Dude, I appreciate you listening. I hope that as you learn these things that, from my mistakes and other mistakes and men that I have seen heal around me in my own healing, I hope that you're finding something in this. You can go down into the show notes. My Calendly link is down there. If you'd like to book a free 15-minute consultation call, would love to do that with you. There's also the link down there for thesacredgrit.com. Check out all the men's retreats and such coming up. And then there's also my email address if you'd like to get a hold of me. Would love to have you. All right. Chuck Swenson down at Chick-fil-A Griffin. I talk about him all the time because he is the man, one of the best Chick-fil-A's that you could ever step foot inside of. I hope if you're ever down in Griffin, Georgia, that you would go in Chick-fil-A Griffin and see Chuck and all the fine folks that work for him. All right, my dude, stay gritty, and I'll see you on Wednesday.